All right, everyone get ready, because today we're going deep, deep into 17th century English magic.
Yeah, and you know what's really cool about this deep dive is that we have an actual grimoire to guide us.
Exactly. We're talking the Grimoire of Arthur Gauntlet.
A handwritten book of spells and rituals and all sorts of magical knowledge.
And it's all attributed to this mysterious Arthur Gauntlet.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're not just going to be deciphering spells.
It's like we're going to try to understand the life.
And times of a real practitioner.
Right. Like, who was this Gauntlet guy?
What kind of magic was he into?
And what secrets can we unlock from his book?
It's going to be a fun ride.
Okay, so let's set the scene first. 1600s England.
Okay.
London is like this
Yeah.
hub of magical practitioners,
Hotbed.
even though they've got this Witchcraft Act hanging over their heads.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Because, officially prosecution of witches was waning during this time.
Right.
But London was practically overflowing with cunning folk and magic users.
But all of this is happening in a primarily Protestant England.
Mm-hmm.
So magic is,
Yeah.
Kind of a
A touchy subject.
touchy subject, yeah.
I'm sure.
So where does our mysterious Arthur Gauntlet fit into all of this?
Well, the only published reference we have about him comes from the autobiography of William Lilly.
Oh, William Lilly, the famous astrologer.
Yes, and it's quite the juicy tidbit.
Okay, give it to me.
Lilly calls Gauntlet a very lewd fellow,
Okay,
professing physic.
hold on, lewd fellow. What does that even mean?
And he worked with the talented scryer Sarah Skillholm.
Besides the obvious, of course.
Well, back then, lewd could mean a lot of things.
Like what?
Obviously, sexually promiscuous was one meaning,
Okay.
but it could also mean someone who lived outside societal norms.
Someone who didn't quite fit in.
Someone who didn't quite fit the mold. Yeah,
A bit of a rebel.
perhaps.
And, that kind of makes sense for someone dabbling in magic when it wasn't exactly the most accepted thing. So this lewdness adds another layer to how we might view his magical practice.
Right, was it seen as fringe?
Yep.
Even within the magical community itself?
And let's not forget about the scryer,
Oh, yes, Sarah Skillholm.
Sarah Skellholm. Lily mentioned she had the best eyes for scrying he ever seen.
Wow.
Just to clarify for our listener, scrying is a type of divination.
Right.
You use like a crystal ball
Yeah.
or something similar
Bit
to,
of visions.
yeah, to see visions.
Exactly.
So Gauntlet is working with this incredibly talented scryer.
This suggests to me that he wasn't just interested in practical magic.
He's looking for something a little deeper.
Yes, he was seeking deeper knowledge, maybe even glimpses into the future.
It's like he was running a 17th century detective agency,
I like that.
using magic to solve mysteries
Using magic to solve mysteries or to gain an edge.
or to gain an edge.
Right.
Now, here's another detail that makes this whole thing even more intriguing.
Okay.
After Gauntlet died, his books, including this grimoire, were sold. So this tells us that his magical practice wasn't
Wasn't entirely secret.
entirely secret. Yeah.
Right.
Because you would think if someone wanted to really discredit him,
Yeah, they'd burn the books.
they would burn his books, right?
Not sell them.
Not sell them. This implies a certain level
In
of
fact.
respect, yeah, or at least an acknowledgement of his skill,
Exactly. It indicates that his knowledge was still valued,
even after his death.
even after his death. Thankfully for us,
Yeah.
this grimoire offers a window into those skills.
Like we could look directly into his world.
And into his influences.
Right.
And it becomes clear that he wasn't just some guy copying spells.
He was contributing.
He was shaping these traditions.
So we've got this intriguing figure practicing magic in this complex and, somewhat hostile environment.
Yeah.
But it seems like he wasn't working in isolation.
No, he wasn't.
We find links between Gauntlet and other figures of the time,
We do.
thanks to Lily's autobiography.
He's like our 17th century gossip columnist, isn't he?
He is. I love it.
Well, both Lily and Gauntlet mention a Captain Bub, placing them in the same social circles.
Oh, shared connections.
Shared connection.
What kind of character was this Captain Bub?
Well, probably not someone you'd want to have over for dinner.
Okay.
Lily describes him as a handsome and well-spoken astrologer,
Okay.
but he adds that he was covetous and of no honesty.
So you'd want to keep an eye on your silverware.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this connection, however brief it is, gives us a glimpse into Gauntlet's world.
The kind of people he was interacting with,
What kind of people he may have interacted with.
I am hooked.
Okay, good.
What other intriguing connections do we find?
Well, there's a fascinating one within Gauntlet's grimoire itself.
Okay.
He mentions a John Searle
The John Searle.
as the author of a prayer
The prayer.
that combines surgery and astronomy.
Surgery, astronomy, and prayer.
That's quite the combination.
That is a unique combination.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this Searle fella.
Well, we believe that he might have been a minor canon at Westminster Abbey in 1594. The timing lines up, and this blend of religious and practical roles would fit the profile.
So now we have Guantlet potentially connected to a figure within the church.
Potentially.
He's rubbing shoulders with astrologers.
Right.
Now potentially clergy.
Mm-hmm.
This paints a rather complex picture of his social circle.
It does. Guantlet was clearly part of a network.
Mm-hmm.
And these connections, even if they're fleeting, show us the kind of world he navigated.
A world where magic and religion and even science intersected.
Exactly.
All right, I'm dying to know more about the grimoire itself.
Okay.
What kind of magical knowledge did Guantlet deem worthy of recording in this book?
Well, the grimoire is incredibly diverse.
Okay.
It draws on a wide range of sources.
So what does that tell us about Guantlet?
Well, it tells us that he was deeply immersed in magical traditions, both contemporary and older.
He was curating a collection.
Yes.
He wasn't just blindly copying spells.
Right. It points to a level of discernment.
Now, this suggests a very deliberate approach to his craft.
Absolutely. A desire to understand and to select the most effective or intriguing magical practices.
So like a master chef.
Yes.
Creating the perfect recipe.
Exactly. For instance, the grimoire contains excerpts from The Book of Gold,
Okay.
another magical manuscript.
Uh-huh.
This one written in French.
So like a shared lineage of magical knowledge?
Precisely. Then there's material by the astrologer William Bacon,
Oh, we've been.
who lived from 1577 to 1653.
Okay.
He includes a key to Helmont
The key.
and experiments related to witchcraft.
Oh, witchcraft. That was a very dangerous accusation in those times.
It was.
So Gauntlet's treading a fine line here
He is.
between accepted practices and those that could really land him in trouble.
He was. And the inclusion of these sources shows he wasn't afraid to delve into the more controversial aspects of magic.
So it speaks to his boldness,
It speaks to his boldness.
his willingness to explore the fringes.
Exactly.
So you mentioned he drew from a variety of sources. What else is in this grimoire that caught your eye?
Well, there's his copy of the Arbatel of Magic.
Arbatel of Magic.
It's a fascinating text from 1575
Okay.
that blends practical magic with spiritual philosophy.
Okay.
But what's really remarkable is that Gauntlet's version includes a rare diagram called the Seal of Secrets.
Wow. Like a special edition grimoire.
Exactly.
Okay.
What does that tell us about his access to these texts?
It sounds like he had a really good network.
It suggests that he did. He had access to a network of knowledge, maybe a more complete version of the text, or even a teacher who passed down these secrets.
I'm starting to see Gauntlet as a dedicated student of magic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, carefully collecting and studying all of these different texts.
Absolutely.
This isn't some hobby for him, is it?
No, it seems to be a serious pursuit.
Okay.
And to make things even more interesting,
Even more interesting.
his grimoire includes material likely copied from the discovery of witchcraft.
Now, hold on. Wasn't that book written to debunk witchcraft? What would Gauntlet want with that?
That's the million-dollar question. It was written in 1584 by Reginald Scott
Okay.
to expose the tricks and illusions used by those accused of witchcraft.
So why would someone so clearly interested in magic
Right.
include a book that's essentially trying to dismantle it?
Right. That's the big question.
Yeah.
Perhaps he was seeking a complete understanding of the arguments against magic so that he could better defend or refine his own practices.
Okay.
Or maybe he saw value in some of the techniques described,
Oh.
even if he disagreed with Scott's overall conclusions.
It's like you wanted to know all sides of the argument.
All sides of the argument,
Mm.
to be well-versed in the criticisms as well as the praises of magic.
That speaks volumes about his intellectual curiosity.
I agree. He wasn't just blindly accepting everything he read.
He was engaging with the material.
He was engaging with the material, critically evaluating it.
A true scholar of magic.
He was a true scholar of magic.
So we have a picture of Gauntlet, his world,
Mm-hmm.
and his thirst for knowledge.
Yeah.
But now I want to know what he actually did with this knowledge.
Okay.
What kind of spells and secrets are hidden within this grimoire?
Well, remember, magic during this period wasn't just about summoning demons or casting curses.
It was a part of daily life.
It was deeply interwoven with daily life.
It was like a 17th century life hack.
Exactly. Gauntlet's grimoire reflects this.
Oh?
It contains a fascinating array of practical magic,
Give me the juicy details.
from protection and healing
Ooh.
to love and even inducing visions.
Okay.
So let's say, for instance, you were worried about someone harming you.
Okay.
You might consult Gauntlet's Grimoire for a protective charm,
Okay.
perhaps involving specific herbs or stone.
All right. I like it. What about love spills?
Of course. If you were yearning for someone's affection,
Yeah.
you might find a ritual in Gauntlet's Grimoire for attracting love.
It's like the 17th century Tinder.
Exactly.
I love it. What about healing?
Healing was huge.
Right.
Healing magic was vital in that era.
Especially with limited medical knowledge.
Yeah.
So magic would have offered another avenue for dealing with illness.
Precisely, Gauntlet's Grimoire likely contained charms and rituals for various ailments,
Okay.
utilizing herbs and prayers,
And specific actions.
and specific actions to promote recovery.
Okay, so Gauntlet wasn't just dealing with everyday problems.
He was also exploring the spiritual side of magic.
Oh. So he's looking at the ritual.
Yes, rituals for summoning spirits,
Okay.
inducing visions perhaps for divination or seeking guidance from other realms.
So it wasn't just about the physical world.
Right.
It was about the spiritual side as well.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that the line between the practical and the spiritual
Yeah.
was often very blurry in 17th century magic.
It was all interconnected.
It was all part of a larger worldview.
Were there any other magical practices or traditions that stand out in the Grimoire?
Well, he also incorporated elements of Solomonic magic,
Oh, Solomonic magic.
a tradition attributed to the biblical King Solomon,
Mm.
known for its elaborate rituals and the use of seals and symbols.
Okay, so what makes Solomonic magic unique?
Well, it often involves creating intricate seals
Okay.
and talismans
Mm-hmm.
inscribed with specific names and symbols thought to hold immense power.
So it's not just about words and actions.
Right.
These physical objects themselves had magical significance.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting is that Gauntlet didn't just copy these Solomonic spells and rituals verbatim.
Oh, so he was adding his own twist.
He analyzed them.
He was putting his own personal stamp on these things.
Exactly. It speaks to his level of magical literacy,
Hmm.
his willingness to experiment and adapt within the tradition.
He was like a chef taking a classic recipe
Yeah,
and making it his own.
exactly.
I like it. Speaking of unique twists, what kinds of ingredients did Gauntlet utilize in his magical practice?
Well, his grimoire reveals a wide array of substances,
Like what?
everything from common herbs and stones
Okay.
to animal parts,
Okay.
and even, believe it or not, bodily fluids.
Bodily
Where
fluid.
do those be included? It might seem strange to us now, but back then, specific substances were believed to hold inherent power.
Okay.
It's like sympathetic magic,
Okay.
where an object's properties can be harnessed for a specific purpose.
So using a particular animal part or bodily fluid
Mm-hmm.
could imbue a spell with certain energies or influences.
Precisely.
So the material world plays a vital role in their magical practice.
A vital role. It wasn't just about the words and rituals. It was about harnessing the inherent power believed to reside within these ingredients.
So we've explored the practical side of Gauntlet's Grimoire.
Yes.
His spells, his influences, his rather interesting ingredients.
Yes.
I want to know about the bigger picture.
Okay.
What can we learn about the mindset of a 17th century magician from this book?
That's where it gets really fascinating. Gauntlet's Grimoire isn't just a collection of spells.
It's a window into their world.
It's a portal to a different way of seeing the world.
Okay.
A world where magic wasn't just possible, it was woven into the fabric of everyday life.
So imagine living in this world,
And
where you might turn to a charm for protection against an illness, or a ritual for attracting love, just as easily as we might consult WebMD or Tinder today.
precisely.
It's like we've lost touch with this.
It's like a hidden layer of reality that we've lost touch with
Yeah.
that operates on different rules than the ones we're accustomed to.
So paint me a picture. What did this magical universe look like?
Well, it was a universe teeming with spirits,
Okay.
each with its own powers and domains.
Okay.
And these spirits weren't necessarily good or evil.
They were just...
They were just forces that could be worked with for benefit or for harm.
It sounds like a cosmic chessboard,
I love that.
with magicians like Gauntlet trying to make strategic moves,
Yeah.
using the power of these spirits to achieve their aims.
Exactly. And Gauntlet's Grimoire,
It's the rule book.
it provides the rulebook, the spells and rituals believed to be effective in influencing these spiritual forces.
It's like a complex system.
A complex system requiring knowledge, skill,
And I imagine a certain amount of courage.
and courage to delve into these potentially dangerous forces.
Now, it's also important to remember that this magical universe wasn't entirely separate from the Christian worldview
Right.
that dominated England at the time,
It wasn't.
right? England was a Christian nation,
Yes.
but these older beliefs about magic and spirits clearly persisted alongside official doctrine.
They did. Gauntlet's grimoire reflects this blend of influences.
It's almost like these two systems were in conversation with each other.
They were. You'll find Christian prayers and symbols woven into pre-Christian magical practices.
So it wasn't a clean break from the past.
It wasn't.
These older beliefs hadn't been completely erased
No,
by the arrival of Christianity.
they hadn't. It makes you wonder where Gauntlet stood on this.
Yeah.
Was he a devout Christian who also happened to practice magic?
Right.
Or did he see magic as a separate path altogether?
Good question.
It's a question we can only speculate on.
Yeah.
But his grimoire offers some clues.
Okay.
For instance, he includes warnings about the dangers of summoning powerful forces,
Okay.
a theme that aligns with Christian teachings about the risk of consorting with demons.
Right. So even within this magical worldview,
Mm-hmm.
there was a sense of ethical responsibility
It was.
and awareness of the potential for both good and harm.
Absolutely. Magic was never seen as a purely neutral force.
Yeah.
It was a tool that could be used for various purposes, and Gauntlet's grimoire reminds us of that inherent duality.
So was he using his knowledge for personal gain?
Right.
Or was he trying to help others?
That's something we'll continue to explore as we delve deeper into the contents of his grimoire.
Yeah.
But it's crucial to recognize that magic, even in its practical applications, was never entirely without consequences.
It's like wielding a powerful tool.
It is.
It can be used to build
Right.
or to destroy,
Right.
depending on the intentions of the user.
Exactly.
And that's why it's so important to understand the context,
yes.
the beliefs, the motivations of the people who practiced magic in the past.
Precisely. And that brings us to another crucial point. Gauntlet's grimoire didn't exist in a vacuum.
It was part of a larger tradition.
It was part of a larger magical tradition, one that stretches back centuries and continues to influence us today.
So we're not just studying the work of a single,
Right.
albeit fascinating individual.
No, we're exploring a lineage of magical knowledge.
And practice.
And practice a lineage that connects us to the past and in some ways shapes the present.
And that's what we'll delve into next.
Yes.
The legacy of Gauntlet's grimoire and how its contents may have rippled through time, leaving their mark on later magical traditions and beliefs.
Sounds good.
I'm ready to follow those ripples and see where they lead us.
Me too.
All right. So we've established that Arthur Gauntlet's grimoire wasn't just like his personal collection of spells. It was part of a much bigger magical tradition,
Yeah, a tradition that extends
and one that goes way beyond 17th century England.
far beyond 17th century England.
You mentioned last time that we could actually trace this legacy by looking at where Gauntlet's grimoire ended up.
We can.
So where did it end up?
Well, remember William Lilly mentioned that after Gauntlet's death, his books were sold.
Right, which made us wonder about, who might have been interested in his magical knowledge.
Exactly.
What was his reputation like?
Right.
So spill the beans.
Right.
Where did these books end up?
Well, it turns out that some of those books, including the grimoire we've been talking about,
Yeah.
found their way into some pretty prestigious libraries.
Like where?
Well, the British Library, for one.
The British Library.
Yes.
Wow, that's like the ultimate validation
Talk about a stamp of approval.
for a historical document, right? To be included in a collection like that.
I mean, that means that it's considered significant,
Yeah.
not just some dusty old relic.
So it wasn't just some random book of spells.
Yeah.
It was recognized as an actual piece of history.
It was a window into the past.
It's like a museum exhibit,
Oh, like that.
But instead of showcasing like an ancient tool or, pottery,
Yeah.
it's showcasing this collection of magical knowledge.
That has been carefully preserved for future generations.
I love that analogy.
It really captures the essence of what these grimoires represent.
Yeah.
They're artifacts of a belief system, a way of life that's largely vanished.
Okay, so the grimoire is safe and sound in the British Library,
Yes.
available for scholars to study.
Mm-hmm.
But what about its impact on other magical practitioners?
Right?
Did Gauntlet's work inspire or inform other magical traditions?
That's a tricky question.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have a clear lineage,
Right.
a record of, who might have read Gauntlet's grimoire.
It's not like they had magical citations back then,
No, they didn't.
or footnotes.
Exactly.
So how did people share their magical secrets back in the 17th century?
Well, it was much more informal.
Okay.
They're relying on personal connections and
Mhm.
trust Word of mouth was huge.
Mhm.
People would share spells and rituals with family and friends, and that knowledge would be passed down through generations.
Like a family recipe book,
Exactly.
but for magic.
But for magic.
Like a...
And then there were handwritten copies of grimoires and other magical texts.
Right.
And these weren't mass-produced.
Okay.
They were painstakingly copied by hand,
Wow.
often with personalized notes.
It must have taken so long.
It did. Each copy was a real labor of love.
So these handwritten copies would then circulate among practitioners.
They would, creating a network of magical exchange.
Like a hidden web of
A
knowledge.
hidden web of knowledge.
So it's totally possible that Gauntlet's grimoire, or at least parts of it,
Right.
were copied and shared.
Very likely. And given the rarity of some of the material in his grimoire, like that seal of secrets from the Arbitel of Magic,
Yeah.
it's tempting to think that his work might have been highly sought after.
It's like finding a first edition of a rare book.
Exactly.
You know, it's something special.
Yes.
It's valuable.
And in the world of magic, a unique spell or ritual could be incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
A powerful tool.
So Gauntlet's grimoire might have been this hidden treasure,
Right.
passed from one magician to another.
Its secrets whispered in hushed tones.
I love that image.
It's not entirely implausible.
Yeah.
We know that magical knowledge was often closely guarded, shared only with those deemed trustworthy.
So Gauntlet's grimoire, with its diverse material,
Yes.
it would have been even more valuable.
Including those controversial texts like the discovery of witchcraft.
Yeah.
It would have made it even more valuable to those seeking a comprehensive understanding of magic.
It's like he compiled a masterclass in magic.
He did.
Drawing from all these different sources.
Yeah, creating something truly unique.
And it's so fascinating to think about how those ideas might have spread.
Right.
How they were adapted and incorporated into other magical practices.
We may never be able to trace those connections directly,
Yeah.
but the possibility is definitely tantalizing.
It's like dropping a pebble into a pond, right?
Exactly.
Ripples spread out.
Yes.
Even if we can't always see where they end up.
Precisely. And that sense of mystery,
Yeah.
that possibility of hidden connections and influences is part of what makes studying historical magic so captivating. We're constantly uncovering new layers, new threads that weave together to create this rich tapestry of magical beliefs and practices.
Okay, so we've talked about the grimoire.
Yes.
Its journey, its possible legacy.
Right.
But what about the man himself?
Okay.
Who was Arthur Gauntlet?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sadly, we don't have a complete answer.
It's frustrating.
Gauntlet remains an enigma.
Yeah, we have this incredible grimoire.
His life shrouded in mystery.
This treasure trove of magical knowledge.
Yes.
And yet the person who created it remains this shadow.
It is. But we can still try to piece together a portrait of Gauntlet using those clues that are scattered throughout the grimoire and the few historical references that we do have.
All right, let's play detective.
Okay.
What can we infer about Gauntlet from what we know?
Well, we know that he was practicing magic in London during the 17th century,
Right.
a time of immense change and upheaval.
Yeah.
England was still grappling with the aftermath of the Reformation.
Right.
And the Witchcraft Act was in full effect.
So not an easy time to be practicing magic.
Not an easy time. It created a climate of fear and suspicion around magic.
So Gauntlet was operating in a very dangerous environment.
He was.
It must take in a certain type of person
It would have.
to pursue magic under those circumstances.
It tells us something about his character.
Yeah.
He wasn't easily deterred.
Yeah.
He was clearly drawn to magic, passionate about it, even willing to risk persecution to pursue it.
It suggests a boldness,
Yes.
maybe even a rebellious streak.
Perhaps.
And then we have that juicy tidbit from William Lilly,
Oh, yes.
calling him a very lewd fellow.
Right?
What does that tell us?
Well, lewd back then could mean a lot of things.
Okay.
From being sexually promiscuous to simply living outside conventional morality.
So maybe he was a free spirit,
Maybe.
someone who didn't conform to societal expectations.
Exactly. He might have been someone who enjoyed indulging in life's pleasures.
Okay.
Someone who wasn't afraid to challenge norms, both societal and magical.
And his collaboration with the scryer, Sarah Skelholm,
Oh, yes.
suggests he was also interested in divination,
Yes.
in using magic to gain insight into, hidden realms,
Yeah.
the future.
The future.
It adds another layer to his practice.
It does.
Doesn't
It's
it?
not just about practical magic or manipulating spirits.
It's about seeking knowledge,
Yes,
understanding the hidden workings of the universe.
precisely. And the care he took in compiling his grimoire,
Right.
the meticulous way he recorded his knowledge,
Yeah.
tells us he was methodical,
Okay.
deliberate in his approach.
He wasn't just like throwing ingredients together.
He was a student of magic, a scholar, not just a dabbler.
Yeah. And hoping for the best.
Right. He was studying, experimenting, refining his craft.
And he drew from such a diverse range of sources,
He did.
both old and new.
Yes.
It shows he was always searching for knowledge.
Always seeking to expand his understanding of magic.
He was a collector of magical wisdom,
He was.
a curator of spells and rituals.
Yes. And the fact that he was willing to incorporate those controversial texts like the discovery of witchcraft suggests he wasn't afraid to challenge his own beliefs,
Right.
to seek a complete and nuanced understanding of magic,
Even its darker aspect.
even its darker aspect.
And that intellectual curiosity,
Right.
that willingness to question and explore is what makes Gauntlet so fascinating.
It is. He wasn't content with simply following tradition.
He wanted to know more.
He wanted to understand the why, the deeper meaning behind the magic.
He wasn't just practicing magic. He was engaging with it
Yes.
on an intellectual level.
Trying to unravel its secrets
Yeah.
and understand its true potential.
He's a much more complex and intriguing figure than, just your average 17th century sorcerer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And while we may never know the full story of his life,
Yeah.
his grimoire allows us to connect with him on an intellectual and spiritual level.
It's like having a conversation across the centuries.
It is.
Like we're talking to him right now.
A dialogue with a fellow seeker of hidden knowledge.
It's amazing to think that this book,
It is.
this collection of spells and rituals, can bridge that gap of time
Yeah.
and allow us to connect with someone who lived in such a different world.
Right, but who shared that same human curiosity
Yeah.
and desire for understanding.
And that's the real magic of these grimoires, isn't it?
It is.
They offer us this glimpse into the minds and lives of those who came before us.
They allow us to explore the rich history and evolution of magical beliefs and practices.
So Arthur Gauntlet might remain an enigma,
He might.
but his grimoire ensures that his passion for magic,
Yes.
his thirst for knowledge,
Right.
and his contribution to the tradition will not be forgotten.
Indeed. And who knows,
Yeah.
as more grimoires from this era are discovered and studied, we might uncover more pieces of Gauntlet's story,
Ooh, I like that.
adding further detail to this fascinating yet incomplete portrait.
The possibility of future discoveries.
Right.
That's what makes history so exciting.
It's what keeps it alive.
There's always more to learn.
There's always more to uncover.
Okay, so we've explored the grimoire,
Yes?
its contents, its journey, and we've even tried to understand Arthur Gauntlet himself.
We have.
But what does all this mean for us?
Right.
Why should we, living in the 21st century, care about a 17th century magician and his book of spells?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
What can we learn from Gauntlet and his world that's relevant to our lives today?
Well, for one thing, it challenges our modern assumptions
How's that?
about what's rational and what's superstitious.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront the fact that our current worldview isn't the only one that's ever existed. There have been other ways of seeing and understanding the world.
And those other ways of seeing
Yes.
can sometimes offer really valuable insights,
They can.
even if we don't necessarily agree with all the premises.
Exactly. Take, for instance, Gauntlet's use of natural substances in his magic.
Okay.
This resonates with the growing interest in herbalism and alternative medicine today.
Yeah. It's like we're rediscovering this ancient wisdom and finding new ways to apply this knowledge
To our modern lives?
to our modern lives.
Exactly. And then there's the concept of a magical universe,
Right.
a world populated by spirits and forces that can be influenced through ritual and intention.
Now, it might sound fantastical to us,
It might.
but it speaks to this deep human desire
It does.
for connection to something beyond the material world.
Yes, a longing that's still very much present today.
Even if we don't believe in, the literal existence of these spirits, the idea that our thoughts, our intentions, our actions have this ripple effect, that we're all part of this larger interconnected web.
Yes,
It's a powerful idea.
it is. It can help us approach life with a greater sense of awareness and responsibility.
So studying Gauntlet's grimoire isn't just about learning about magic.
No, it's not.
It's about learning about ourselves,
Exactly.
the enduring questions that have captivated humanity for centuries.
It's about exploring the nature of belief, the power of ritual, the search for meaning, and our place in the cosmos.
Beautifully put. And I think that's a perfect transition to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We've uncovered a lot about Arthur Gauntlet and his world.
Yes, we have.
But like with any good exploration,
Yeah.
we're left with more questions than answers.
That's the nature of discovery, isn't it? It's not about finding all the answers. It's about the journey itself, the insights we gain along the way.
Yeah, it really does feel like we've only just scratched the surface of Gauntlet's world.
It does. And you know what's interesting to me is that
There's always more to uncover. These grimoires, like gauntlets, they challenge our modern view of magic.
you're right. We tend to, relegate magic to
Fantasy and fiction.
fantasy and fiction. Yeah.
But in Gauntlet's time, magic wasn't separate from everyday life.
It wasn't.
It was part of their religion, their science, even their healthcare.
Precisely. It was a part of their reality, not something that was, viewed as otherworldly or supernatural.
Yeah, and that's such a hard perspective to grasp today.
It is.
Because we live in a world that prioritizes
Scientific explanations.
yes, scientific explanations, empirical evidence.
Right.
Magic is often dismissed as, childish or delusional.
Mm-hmm.
But these grimoires, they invite us to consider a different way of seeing and experiencing the world.
They do.
They highlight these mysteries that science can't fully explain.
Exactly. It's not about rejecting science.
Well,
it's about acknowledging that it has limits.
Yeah.
And being open to possibilities beyond our current understanding.
And that's what I find so fascinating about this whole deep dive. It reminds us that our way of seeing the world isn't the only way.
Right.
And that other perspectives can offer valuable insights.
Absolutely. They can challenge our assumptions, broaden our understanding,
Yeah.
and really make us appreciate the diversity of human thought throughout history.
And I think that's especially important today.
Yeah.
When we're constantly bombarded with information, pressured to conform to certain ways of thinking,
Right.
these grimoires, they encourage us to be more curious,
Yeah.
more open-minded.
More willing to engage with ideas that might initially seem strange or even unsettling.
Yeah, and that open-mindedness can lead to amazing discoveries,
It can.
new perspectives,
For sure.
a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world.
And who knows, it might even lead to a touch of magic in our own lives.
Okay, speaking of magic,
Yeah.
let's go back to those questions.
Let's revisit those intriguing questions that we posed at the very beginning of this deep dive.
The mysteries surrounding Arthur Gauntlet.
Yes. The
Yeah.
mystery surrounding Arthur Gauntlet.
And his magical practice.
And his magical practice.
Who was this lewd fellow
right.
who practiced medicine
collaborated with a talented scryer.
and so meticulously documented all of his magical knowledge.
Right. What drove him to pursue magic in a time when it was both alluring and dangerous?
And what impact did his grimoire have on the magical landscape?
With its unique blend of spells and rituals and diverse sources.
Of his time and beyond?
These are questions that will likely continue to fascinate us.
And we encourage you, our listener,
to ponder as well.
to do the same.
Explore the world of grimoires.
Immerse yourself in the history of magic.
And see what you uncover.
Maybe you'll stumble upon a clue that sheds more light on Arthur Gauntlet's enigmatic life,
Or maybe you'll discover a magical tradition that speaks to you personally.
sparking a journey of exploration and discovery.
The possibilities are limitless.
That's the beauty of magic, isn't it?
It is.
It's a realm of infinite potential just waiting to be explored.
Waiting to be explored.
So keep searching, keep questioning, and keep the magic alive.
And until next time, may your deep dives be filled with wonder and enlightenment.